Well, it's a dire need, obviously. We have a record drought going right now, and the needs of California just keep growing with more and more population, more and more environmental needs, and those that would like to maintain for agriculture, urban manufacturing, etc. So we're certainly going to get on the case this year to make something happen about that.
Well, the Sites Reservoir is absolutely crucial. Droughts are common in California. We know we're going to have another drought. You're storing almost 2 million acre feet behind Sites Reservoir. That water would be available, not all of it, but a good portion would be available. If that reservoir were in place today, it would be available for the rice industry, for the other agricultural area, and for the ducks, for the waterfowl that are going to show up in another 7 months. So it's not there now, but it'll be there for the next drought. Well, the Sites Reservoir is a major storage facility. I suppose there'll be ducks on the reservoir, but more important, that water would be available for the environmental purposes of the Sacramento Valley and maybe even into the San Joaquin Valley, because that water would flow back into the river. It would be there for the agriculture, for the rice, and that's a direct benefit.
If you have a yield of anywhere 1.2 million acre feet or more of water available for any purpose, it's going to be a benefit. Part of that's going to go for the wildlife. You know it is. Whether it is keeping rice fields full, which we have 500,000 acres of rice in California. It's one of the best habitats coexisting with economic factors such as growing food in Northern California. So it's a plus all the way around. There's no way it can't be good for wildlife of any type.
We'll just take this year where we have this severe drought. About half of the rice fields are going to go fallow.
Certainly.
And that's the duck habitat, the waterfowl habitat that won't be there this year. If sites were there, it's possible that most of that would be in production this year for the benefit of the waterfowl that'll be migrating in later in the fall and winter.
We know a lot of people are going to be really cut tight on their supply this year. So certain districts are going to see zero, some will be cut down to 40%. And also this affects the wildlife areas as well. The refuges, we've had conversations with them that they want to just somehow at least be kept partially whole as a survival type year. And so we see across the board having this availability of water supply is going to help benefit everybody for the ag economy, for wildlife habitat. It's just a big plus we get this done.
Well, Sites Reservoir has been on the books and talked about for 30, 40 years. And there are organizations that say no more dams, period. Well, Sites Reservoir is a different kind of dam. First of all, it's off-stream. It's not damming up any significant creek or even a significant river. So it's off-stream, and that removes a lot of the environmental concerns of damming a river. But it also has very significant positive benefits. We've discussed some of those, the ability to provide water through the refuges, water for the rice industry to provide the kind of habitat for the waterfowl. And there are benefits for the salmon in the river, because it will be water that can be released when the salmons are not there. It's warm water, saving the cold water for when the salmon need that water as they migrate upstream and then downstream. So there are these significant environmental benefits that are not known and certainly not appreciated. So our task, Doug and I, are to reach out to the environmental community and to educate them about the benefits that the Site Reservoir brings to the environment.
And again, the industry I come from, the rice industry, has done a very good job of that so far, clearing up misunderstandings from 20, 30 years ago about what a positive benefit that ag industry is, and then the water storage that helps make that happen, the water storage that is part of, it's so interrelated, because 500,000 acres of rice is 500,000 acres of productive habitat that would not normally be there if somebody wasn't paying for and initiating storage projects. And so the storage is there year in, year out. When you would have a drought situation, second or third year, there'd be no water to release to keep fish flows happening in the river, or to cause the flooding that would happen in the flyways for waterfowl. So the positive effects of what we do in agriculture, of what we do with stored water, is so far beyond what any negative could be, especially when we're talking about our bill that we're putting in place here soon, the Sites Reservoir. It can only be a plus for most cases. I think for those that say no more to that, well, then they probably shouldn't be drawing water from Lake Shasta or Lake Oroville, the other ones we have around the state, because these have been benefiting people for 50 to 80 years. I
On
like
his farm.
Yeah, in the flyway. So I enjoy just most being on my own farm around my kids when we go out and do a little sports shooting, what have you. And so it's just right in the neighborhood for me. And whether it's upland game or maybe the occasional duck. My son's the big enthusiast on it these days. I've been a little busier lately.
How old is he?
He's 19, so he loves getting out there and getting after it. So, yep.
You remember being 19? Were you enthusiastic at that age about hunting?
I can remember it. It was so my dad took me out a very early age, and that was a cool experience.
Well, as for me, when I was 19, we would hunt all the time. We would go, whatever the season was, we would be hunting. Now, if I go duck hunting, it's going to be in the Sutter Sink, in the Sutter Buttes area. But for other hunting, every year, for about the last 25 years, we've gone to one of our friends' ranches for dove season. And it turns out that the hunting is only a part of it. It's the camaraderie, the friendships that you build. Well, obviously, we're in the business of writing laws and funding programs. That's a piece of it. But we cannot do that without the support of organizations such as Ducks Unlimited. That's a national organization. It has teamed up, in this case, with the farmers, the rice farmers, and others in the area for the protection of waterfowl. It is an extraordinary, powerful movement that gives momentum to legislation. The legislation we talked about in the Farm Bill, the conservation elements in the Farm Bill that are specific for waterfowl all across this country. It's the rice industry in California, but it's the prairie potholes in the middle states. That happened because of organizations like Ducks Unlimited that have developed a national support base all across this country, whether you're in the Chesapeake or the Mid-America Flyway or the Pacific Flyway. Ducks Unlimited is there pushing these issues in Congress.
They are good to work hand in hand with Ducks Unlimited and other companion organizations with similar missions and goals. That they get our attention as elected because first, you like what their mission is. You like working with them, and they're in your neighborhood. There's always the DU dinners, several of them in my district. It's one of the funnest things you can go to, and they're enthusiastic crowds too. And so I know that comes from the love of the sport, the love of the land, the love of the wildlife that comes with it. So it's really not hard to get the enthusiasm for it. So if DU's mission that they already do well, just keep doing it. Just keep having the public input that they have with the dinners and with what they're doing in the community. That really helps catch everybody on fire to want to be part of the organization, or at least support it tacitly if they're not necessarily attending or buying tickets or hunting all the time. They at least know it's a good thing.
The other piece of it is the details. Knowing the issues, knowing the way in which the law affects the issues, in this case ducks and waterfowl, and then being able to participate in the legislative process in a way that is helpful to us, so that the laws are structured in such a way that the result, in this case, preservation of the waterfowl, of these flyways, of the habitat, is done in a way that fits the movement in Washington, that is the current politics, but done in a way that actually carries out the goal.